The sky over Nevada turned bright at noon, brighter than it had ever been. People looked up, covering their eyes. It wasn't the sun. Something else now hung in the blue sky, a massive ship that gleamed like polished metal. Captain James Walker stood on the roof of the Earth Defense Force headquarters, squinting at the sight. His radio crackled with panicked voices from around the world. Similar ships had appeared over major cities everywhere. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Lieutenant Ben Harris, standing nervously beside him. Walker took a deep breath. "We wait. If they wanted to attack, they would have done it already." The world watched and waited for 3 days. The ships hung silently in the sky, doing nothing. Then on the 4th day, they sent a message to every screen, radio, and communication device on Earth. "People of Earth, we come in peace. We are the Luminari. We wish to meet with your leaders." The United Nations called an emergency meeting. As head of the Earth Defense Force, Walker was ordered to attend. World leaders gathered in New York, all eyes on the empty chair that had been placed at the head of the table for their visitor. At exactly noon, the room filled with bright light. When it faded, a tall figure stood before them. The alien had pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. Its forearms were long and thin, and its face had 3 large eyes that shone like flashlights. "I am Ambassador Bright of the Luminari," it said in perfect English. "We have watched your world for many years. We come to offer friendship." President Clark stood up. "We welcome you to Earth. May I ask why you have chosen now to reveal yourselves?" Ambassador Bright's eyes flickered, changing from white to yellow. "We have seen how your people struggle against the darkness. Like us, you fill your world with light. We believe we can help each other." Walker watched carefully. Something about the alien's words didn't feel right. After the meeting, the world leaders agreed to begin trade talks with the Luminari. Ambassador Bright offered advanced technology in exchange for what they called simple resources, mostly metals and water. Walker was assigned to work directly with the aliens as Earth's military liaison. He met with Ambassador Bright the next day at a newly established base outside Washington, D.C. "Captain Walker," said Bright, extending one of its 4 hands, "I look forward to our cooperation." Walker shook the alien's hand. It felt warm, almost hot. "Ambassador, I have many questions about your people." "As we have about yours," said Bright. "We find it interesting how your kind fears the darkness." Walker raised an eyebrow. "What makes you think we fear the dark?" The ambassador's eyes glowed brighter. "Your cities are never dark. You have lights everywhere all the time. You sleep with small lights. You tell stories to your children about monsters in the dark." Walker smiled. "That's not fear, Ambassador. That's just preference. Humans can see better with light." "Of course," said Bright, though Walker wasn't sure the alien believed him. "We Luminari understand. Our world has 3 suns. We never experience darkness." Over the next few weeks, Luminari ships landed in deserts around the world. They built bases that shone like small cities, visible from space. They never turned off their lights. Walker's friend, Dr. Tom Miller, was assigned to study Luminari technology. One evening he called Walker to his lab looking worried. "James, I've found something strange," said Miller, showing Walker a screen filled with data. "The Luminari bases are using enormous amounts of energy, more than they should need." "What for?" asked Walker. "I don't know," said Miller. "But I've also been studying their biology from the samples they provided. Look at this." Miller showed Walker a microscope image of Luminari cells. Their cells break down in darkness. They don't just prefer light. They need it to survive. Walker frowned. "They said their planet has 3 suns." "Yes, which means they never evolved to handle darkness," said Miller. "But there's something else. The materials they're taking from Earth, they're perfect for building energy storage systems. Really big ones." Walker thought about what this might mean. "Keep working on this, Tom. Don't share it with anyone else yet." 2 months after first contact, the Luminari invited a group of human scientists and officials to visit one of their ships. Walker went along, accompanied by a team that included Miller and a civilian energy expert named Lisa Green. The inside of the Luminari ship was blindingly bright. Every surface glowed. Their alien guides took them through hallways filled with technology beyond human understanding. "This is amazing," said Green, examining what looked like a power system. "Their energy efficiency is incredible." As they toured the ship, Walker noticed something odd. There were no dark spaces anywhere, not even storage rooms or maintenance areas. Everything was lit up. "Ambassador," Walker asked during a break, "do your people ever turn off the lights?" Ambassador Bright's eyes flickered. "Why would we do that, Captain? Light is life." That night, Walker couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Miller had discovered and what he had seen on the ship. He got up and looked out his window at the glowing Luminari base in the distance. His phone rang. It was Green. "Captain Walker, I need to show you something. Can you meet me at the observatory?" The observatory was on a hill outside the city. When Walker arrived, Green was looking through a powerful telescope. "Look at this," she said. Walker looked through the telescope at the Luminari base. From this angle, he could see something the public couldn't. Huge devices being built behind the base, hidden from ground view. "What are those?" he asked. "Energy collectors," said Green. "Massive ones. I recognize the design from the ship. They're building them all around the world." Walker called Miller, who joined them an hour later with more disturbing news. "I've been monitoring their communications," said Miller. "They're using a frequency they think we can't detect. They keep mentioning something called the harvest." Walker felt a chill. "We need to get this information to the president." Next morning, Walker requested an emergency meeting with President Clark. He brought Miller and Green with him to present their findings. "Mr. President," said Walker, "we believe the Luminari may not be here just for trade. They're building massive energy collection systems around the world. They need light to survive, and they're taking our resources to build energy storage." "What are you suggesting, Captain?" asked the president. "I believe they may be planning to take our energy resources, possibly all of them." President Clark looked troubled. "These are serious accusations. We need more proof before we risk our relationship with the Luminari." As they left the White House, Walker felt frustrated. "We need to find solid evidence," he told Miller and Green. "Something they can't ignore." That night, Walker received an encrypted message from a military base near the main Luminari settlement. It contained a video showing Luminari ships unloading strange equipment under cover of darkness, the only time they seemed to work secretly. The equipment looked like weapons. Walker immediately called Miller and Green. "We need to act now. I think they're preparing for something big." As the three of them watched the video again, all their phones beeped with an emergency alert. They looked out the window to see the Luminari ships over every major city suddenly glow brighter than ever before. Then, in an instant, every power grid on Earth went dark. The war had begun. Darkness fell across Earth like a heavy blanket. In cities that once glowed with millions of lights, people stumbled through black streets, confused and afraid. But high above, the Luminari ships shone like artificial suns, casting eerie blue light over the land. Captain James Walker stared out the window of his now powerless office at the Earth Defense Force headquarters. Emergency generators had failed. Communications were down. The most advanced military in human history was suddenly blind and deaf. "They hit the power grid simultaneously," said Dr. Tom Miller, working frantically on a battery-powered laptop. "Every major station across the globe knocked out at once." Lisa Green paced the room, her face half hidden in shadow. "This was their plan all along. They studied us, saw how dependent we are on electricity, and took it away." Walker nodded grimly. "They think we'll panic without light. That's why they're keeping their ships bright, to show us they control the light now." The door burst open, and Lieutenant Harris rushed in. "Sir, we've got reports coming in. The Luminari are landing troops in major cities. They're taking people." Walker's jaw tightened. "Taking them where?" "To their ships, sir. They're using some kind of light beam to paralyze anyone who resists." Outside, the blue glow from the Luminari ships grew stronger. Walker watched as smaller vessels descended toward the city center. It was happening everywhere, he knew. A global invasion. They made a mistake, Walker said quietly. Miller looked up from his computer. What? The Luminari. They made a big mistake. Walker turned to face them, his eyes hard in the dim light. They think we're afraid of the dark. 3 days after the initial attack, Walker led what remained of his team through underground tunnels beneath the city. They moved silently, using night vision goggles salvaged from a military storage facility. Above ground, Luminari patrols swept the streets with powerful searchlights, capturing any humans they found. The president and most of the government have been taken, Harris reported as they reached a makeshift command center in an old subway station. But resistance is forming everywhere. Walker nodded. Around him, soldiers and civilians worked together, setting up equipment by the light of a few carefully shielded lanterns. They had discovered that the Luminari could detect even small light sources from a distance. What's our status? Walker asked. Bad but not hopeless, replied Green, who had become his operations officer. The Luminari control most major cities, but they're struggling with rural areas, too spread out to cover everything. Miller approached carrying a strange device. I've been studying the pieces of Luminari technology we captured. Their weakness is more significant than we thought. He placed the device on a table, part of a Luminari soldier's armor. This isn't just protection, it's a life support system. They literally cannot survive without constant light exposure. Their cellular structure breaks down in darkness. Walker leaned forward, examining the armor. So their suits generate light for them? Yes, said Miller, but they need to recharge regularly. That's why they return to their ships every few hours. A slow smile spread across Walker's face. Then we fight at night in the darkest places we can find. Over the next weeks, Walker's resistance group grew. They established a network of underground bases connected by old tunnels, sewers, and subway lines. They moved only at night, and only in darkness. The Luminari seemed confused by this strategy. They had expected humans to seek out light, to huddle under the glow of their ships for safety. Instead, humans embraced the shadows, becoming invisible to their invaders. 1 month after the invasion began, Walker led his first major counterattack. The target, a Luminari processing center where captured humans were being held. They're keeping them in these light cages, explained a scout who had escaped capture. They think the bright light will keep us from attempting rescue. Walker's team moved through the city under cover of a moonless night. The streets above were patrolled by Luminari soldiers in glowing armor, but the humans stayed in the sewers until they reached their target. The processing center had once been a sports stadium. Now it glowed like a small sun, surrounded by Luminari guards. Inside, thousands of humans were held in pens flooded with harsh light. Remember, Walker told his team, take out their armor first. Without their personal light source, they can't function in darkness. The attack began with precision. Human snipers using modified rifles fired special darts that shorted out the Luminari light armor. As each alien suit failed, they collapsed in the darkness, their bodies unable to maintain cohesion without light. In the confusion, Walker's main force stormed the facility. They wore dark clothing and moved like shadows between the Luminaris. Light beams. The aliens, unable to see well in low light, fired wildly. Cut the power to the holding pens. Walker shouted into his radio as he led a team toward the main generator. The Luminari commander, a taller being with 6 arms instead of 4, stood in their path. Its armor glowed brighter than the others, casting harsh shadows. Your species will submit, it said, its 3 eyes blazing. Light is strength, darkness is death. Walker raised his weapon. You've got that backwards. He fired, hitting the commander's armor with an electromagnetic pulse. The light flickered and died. The alien fell to its knees, its blue skin already beginning to crack and dissolve in the darkness. Impossible, it gasped. You fear the dark. No, said Walker. We master it. With the commander down, Walker's team reached the generator and destroyed it. The stadium plunged into darkness, and the human prisoners were quickly led out through underground tunnels by rescue teams wearing night vision. It was their first major victory, but the war had only begun. 2 months into the occupation, the Luminari changed tactics. They launched orbital platforms that could direct concentrated light at any target, turning night into day for miles around. They began scorching the earth around cities, destroying forests and fields to eliminate potential hiding places. "They're getting desperate," said Green during a strategy meeting in their underground base. "They didn't expect this level of resistance." Miller nodded. "They've also increased their resource extraction. They're tearing apart power plants and dams, taking everything they can use to generate and store energy." "For what purpose?" asked Walker. "I think they're planning something big," said Miller. "The amount of energy they're collecting goes beyond what they need for their ships and troops." That night, a messenger arrived from another resistance cell with disturbing news. The Luminari had begun testing a new weapon, a device that could generate a pulse of light so intense it vaporized everything in its path. "They tested it in the desert," said the messenger. "Created a glass crater half a mile wide." Walker studied the map spread before him. The war was reaching a critical point. Humanity had adapted to fighting in darkness with remarkable speed. Their night operations were becoming more effective, and the Luminari couldn't be everywhere at once. But this new weapon changed things. If the Luminari decided to simply burn the planet rather than conquer it, there would be nowhere to hide. "We need to take the fight to them," Walker said finally. "Not just here on the ground, but up there." He pointed upward, toward the Luminari, ships that still hung in the sky. Miller looked skeptical. "How? We can't even get past their ground troops." Walker turned to Green. "You said they're gathering resources for something big. What if we let them gather something else, something they don't expect?" Green's eyes widened as she caught his meaning. "You want to infiltrate their collection centers?" Walker nodded. "We need to get aboard one of their ships, find out what they're planning, and stop it." As they discussed the dangerous mission, an alarm sounded. A scout rushed in. "Captain, the Luminari are broadcasting on all frequencies they can access. They're making an announcement to all humans." Walker hurried to the communications room, where a salvaged radio was picking up the transmission. The voice of Ambassador Bright filled the room, but now it held no pretense of friendship. "People of Earth, your resistance is futile and misguided. The Luminari offer you one final chance. Come into the light willingly, and you may live as our servants. Remain in darkness, and we will burn your world to ash." Walker looked at them, determined faces around him. In just 2 months, these people had learned to fight an enemy from the stars. They had turned what the Luminari thought was a weakness, humankind's fear of darkness, into their greatest strength. "Send a response," Walker ordered. "What should it say, sir?" asked the communications officer. Walker smiled grimly. "Tell them, we'll see you in the dark." 3 months into the war, Earth had become a world divided between light and shadow. The Luminari controlled circles of harsh brightness around their bases, while humans claimed the darkness between. It was not the victory the aliens had expected when they first attacked. Captain James Walker stood in a hidden cave entrance looking out at the night sky. Above him, the Luminari's orbital light platforms created artificial day over major cities. But here, deep in the mountains, darkness still ruled. "Captain, they're ready for you," said Lieutenant Harris, emerging from the tunnel behind him. Walker nodded and followed Harris into what had become humanity's largest resistance base. The natural cave system stretched for miles underground, housing thousands of fighters and refugees. Humans had quickly learned that the deeper they went, the safer they were from the Luminari. In the main chamber, a crowd had gathered around, a makeshift stage. As Walker walked to the front, he saw familiar faces: Dr. Miller, Lisa Green, and representatives from resistance groups around the world. Some he knew only through radio communications until now. "Welcome, all of you," Walker said, his voice echoing in the cavern. "For those I haven't met in person, I'm Captain Walker. 3 months ago, the Luminari thought they would find an easy victory. They believed that by taking our power, our light, they would break us." He paused, looking at the determined faces before him. They were wrong. A cheer went up from the crowd. Walker raised his hand for silence. But the war is far from over. The Luminari have built light platforms in orbit. They're scorching our land from above, and now they've threatened to burn our world to ash if we don't surrender. Miller stepped forward, carrying a strange device. This is why we've gathered you all here. We've made a breakthrough. He placed the device on a table. It looked like a small backpack with several attachments. We call it the shadow suit, Miller explained. Using what we've learned about Luminari technology, we've created something that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. To demonstrate, he put on the backpack and pressed a button. Immediately, the area around him darkened as if light was being pulled into the device. The Luminari use light not just for seeing, but for their weapons and life support, Miller continued. This technology absorbs that light, weakening them while keeping us hidden. Walker nodded. With these shadow suits, we can approach their bases even in daylight. But we need more than just new technology. We need a new strategy. He unrolled a map on the table. The Luminari have a central command ship over what used to be Geneva. Our intelligence suggests this is where they're coordinating their global operations. It's also where they're developing their planet-killer weapon. Green pointed to several locations on the map. We've identified weak points in their defense network. Their ships need to open light collection panels every 12 hours to gather solar energy. When those panels are open, parts of their shields must be lowered. We're going to hit them when they're feeding, said Walker. Multiple teams striking different targets simultaneously, but our main target is this command ship. A woman stepped forward, Commander Diaz from the South American Resistance. My teams have been monitoring their orbital platforms. We've found a way to temporarily blind their sensors. Good, said Walker. We'll need every advantage. As the meeting continued, plans were made and teams assigned. The attack would be the largest coordinated human effort since the invasion began. Everything depended on precise timing and complete surprise. Later that night, Walker stood with Miller in a smaller chamber where the scientist had set up his lab. There's something else, Miller said quietly, making sure they were alone. Something I didn't want to share with the larger group yet. He showed Walker a series of calculations. The energy readings from the Luminari command ship are off the charts. Whatever weapon they're building, it's not just designed to attack Earth. Walker frowned. What do you mean? I think they're building something that can affect our sun, said Miller. A device that could potentially harvest its energy on a massive scale or even alter it somehow. The implications hit Walker like a physical blow. They could create permanent daylight, or worse, drain our sun until it dies. Miller nodded grimly. Either way, hiding in caves won't save us then. Then we have no choice, said Walker. We move tomorrow night. The next day was spent in final preparations. Shadow suits were distributed to the assault teams. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Every fighter knew their role in the complex plan. As sunset approached, Walker addressed the teams one last time. The Luminari think they understand humans, he told them. They think we fear the dark, that we're weak without our technology. Tonight we show them how wrong they are. He looked at the determined faces around him. Humanity didn't become the dominant species on Earth by fearing the night. Our ancestors hunted in darkness when they needed to. They navigated by stars when there were no maps. And when fire was invented, it wasn't just to push back the dark. It was to master it, to use it on our terms. Walker strapped on his own shadow suit. Tonight we are those ancestors again. Tonight we hunt. As night fell, resistance teams moved into position around the world. Using underground tunnels, mountain paths, and waterways, they approached Luminari, strongholds undetected. Walker led the primary assault team toward the Geneva base where the Luminari command ship hovered. They moved through forest that had been partially burned by the aliens' scorching tactics, the charred trees providing additional cover. Command ship in sight, whispered Harris as they reached the edge of the forest. Ahead of them, the massive, alien vessel hung in the air, surrounded by a bubble of intense light. Walker checked his watch. 3 minutes until they opened their collection panels. The team waited in tense silence. Walker could feel his heart pounding. Everything depended on the next few hours. Panels opening, said Green, watching through specialized binoculars. Their shield is fluctuating. Walker gave the signal. Activate shadow suits, move out. As one, the team pressed the activation buttons on their suits. The darkness around them deepened as the technology began absorbing light. To the Luminari's sensors, they would appear as nothing more than moving shadows, if they were detected at all. They raced across the open ground toward the base. Luminari guards stood at regular intervals, their light armor glowing. But their gaze was focused outward, not down at the ground where the humans ran in the shadows between light beams. The first sign that something was wrong came when Walker's radio crackled. "Captain, this is Diaz. Something's happening. The orbital platforms are changing position." Walker paused, looking up. The bright spots in the sky were indeed moving, aligning in a pattern. "They know we're coming," he realized with sudden certainty. "Everyone speed up, we need to reach the ship now." As if in response to his words, the ground around them suddenly blazed with light. Hidden projectors activated, eliminating every shadow. "They've prepared for us," shouted Harris as Luminari soldiers appeared, surrounding them. Walker made a split-second decision. "Plan B, everyone scatter." The team broke in different directions, using the shadow suits to absorb as much light as possible, but the Luminari had anticipated this move. Light beams tracked them, keeping them illuminated. Walker ran toward the main facility beneath the command ship. If they couldn't reach the ship directly, maybe they could find another way in. Behind him, he heard the sounds of fighting as his team engaged the Luminari soldiers. A blinding flash made him stumble. He looked up to see the orbital platforms aligning, focusing their beams on a single point. The combined light was so intense it cut through clouds, creating a pillar of radiance that struck the top of the command ship. "That's it," Walker realized. "They're powering up their weapon." With renewed determination, he charged toward the base. If he couldn't stop them from above, he would stop them from below. A group of Luminari blocked his path, their weapons raised. Walker activated his shadow suit to maximum power. The area around him plunged into absolute darkness, confusing the light-dependent aliens. In that moment of confusion, Walker attacked. His training made him lethal even in pitch blackness. One by one, the Luminari fell, their armor cracking as the darkness invaded their bodies. Walker reached the main entrance to the facility. Inside, he could see more Luminari rushing about in panic. The absence of light created by his shadow suit was spreading like a physical presence. "Sir," Harris's voice came through his radio. "The other teams are reporting success. Bases worldwide are under attack." Walker smiled grimly. "Good. Now we just need to stop that weapon." He stepped into the facility, darkness flowing around him, like a cloak. The war had entered a new phase. The humans weren't just fighting back anymore. They were bringing the dark to the creatures of light, and the Luminari were beginning to fear it. The inside of the Luminari base was a maze of glowing corridors. Captain James Walker moved through them like a living shadow, his shadow suit absorbing the light around him. Where he walked, darkness followed. Luminari technicians fled at his approach, their blue skin cracking in the sudden darkness. Walker had never seen them so afraid. For a species that lived in constant light, his ability to bring darkness was terrifying. "Miller, I'm inside the base," Walker said into his radio. "Where am I going?" Back in the mobile command center, Dr. Tom Miller studied a rough map they had pieced together from spy reports. "The main control room should be at the center of the facility, but be careful. Our readings show massive energy building up." Walker made his way deeper into the base. Alarms blared, and announcements in the Luminari language echoed through the corridors. He couldn't understand the words, but the panicked tone was clear enough. As he turned a corner, 5 Luminari soldiers appeared, their armor glowing brighter than usual. They had adjusted their equipment to counteract his shadow suit. "Humans cannot win," said the lead soldier, its 3 eyes narrowed. "Light will always defeat darkness." Walker didn't waste time arguing. He ducked behind a pillar as the soldiers fired beams of concentrated light. The shadow suit absorbed some of the energy, but he could feel heat penetrating to his skin. Pulling a special grenade from his belt, Walker activated it and threw it at the soldiers. The device exploded with a soft thump, releasing a cloud of black particles that clung to the Luminari armor, blocking their light projectors. The effect was immediate. As their personal light sources dimmed, the aliens began to convulse, their skin flaking away in the darkness. Walker turned away from the sight. Even after months of war, he took no pleasure in the way the Luminari died. Walker update came, Lisa Green's voice over the radio. Our teams have breached bases worldwide, but the orbital platforms are still channeling energy to the command ship. Whatever they're planning, it's still happening. I'm moving as fast as I can, Walker replied, continuing toward the center of the facility. He reached a massive door marked with Luminari symbols. Unlike the rest of the base, this door was dark metal with no light elements. Walker recognized the material. It was the same energy-absorbing alloy humans had developed for the shadow suits. They created their own darkness tech, he muttered. They're learning. No time for subtlety. Walker planted explosives on the door and took cover. The blast echoed through the corridors, and when the smoke cleared, the door hung open on damaged hinges. Beyond was the largest room Walker had seen inside a Luminari structure. It stretched upward for several floors, with a central column of pulsing light that reached from floor to ceiling. Around this column, dozens of Luminari technicians worked at control stations. At the far end of the room stood Ambassador Bright, now wearing elaborate armor covered in light-emitting crystals. The ambassador turned as Walker entered, its eyes flashing from yellow to red. "Captain Walker," said Bright. "You are too late." Walker stepped forward, the shadow suit creating a bubble of darkness around him. "What are you doing, Bright? What weapon are you powering up?" "Not a weapon, Captain." The ambassador's voice was calm. "A salvation. Your sun is inefficient. It wastes energy, projecting light in all directions. We will focus it, harness its full potential." "By doing what?" "By surrounding it with our collection platforms. Your planet will receive more light than ever before. Constant, perfect light. No more night. No more shadows for humans to hide in." Walker understood now. "You're not trying to destroy the sun, you're trying to cage it." "For the benefit of all," said Bright. "The Luminari will thrive in the constant light, and humans will have no darkness to hide in. In time you will adapt. The strong will survive. And those who don't adapt?" The ambassador made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "Evolution has always had its costs." Walker looked at the column of light. Energy from the orbital platforms was being collected, building toward some critical threshold. Once released, it would somehow affect Earth's sun itself. "I can't let you do this," said Walker. "You cannot stop it," replied Bright. "The process has begun. In moments, the final sequence will activate." Walker didn't waste more time talking. He charged forward, pushing his shadow suit to maximum power. The darkness spread out from him like a wave engulfing control stations. Luminary technicians screamed as their light sources failed. Ambassador Bright stood firm, protected by its advanced armor. "Your primitive technology cannot affect me, Captain. My armor contains power, sources from a dozen suns." Walker reached for his weapon, but Bright moved with surprising speed. A beam of concentrated light struck Walker in the chest, sending him flying backward. The shadow suit absorbed most of the energy, but he felt searing pain where the beam penetrated. "Humans are remarkable," said Bright, approaching slowly. "We expected you to surrender when we took your light. Instead, you embraced the darkness we thought you feared. A fascinating adaptation." Walker struggled to his feet, his shadow suit flickering as it tried to recover from the damage. "We never feared the dark, Ambassador. We just hadn't needed to use it as a weapon until you arrived." His radio crackled. "Walker!" Miller's voice was urgent. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they're doing, it's happening now." The column of light in the center of the room pulsed more rapidly. Walker could feel the energy building like the air before a lightning strike. "Too late, Captain," said Bright, its eyes gleaming. "The future will be bright." But Walker had one last card to play. During the months of war, Miller had developed more than just the shadow suits. He had created something they called a darkness bomb, a device that could temporarily neutralize all light-based technology in a wide area. Walker had been saving it for an emergency. This qualified. He pulled the small black sphere from a protected pocket. Ambassador Bright's eyes widened in recognition. "That device cannot stop the process," said the ambassador, but there was uncertainty in its voice. "Let's find out," replied Walker, and activated the bomb. For a moment, nothing happened. Then darkness, complete, absolute darkness, spread outward from the sphere. It wasn't just an absence of light, it was something active, as if the darkness itself was alive. The luminary in the room screamed as their light sources failed. Ambassador Bright's elaborate armor flickered and went dark. The central column of energy sputtered and collapsed. Walker, prepared for the effect, had closed his eyes. When he opened them, his night vision equipment showed chaos. The Luminari were disintegrating in the darkness, their bodies unable to maintain cohesion without light. Ambassador Bright had collapsed to its knees, but its advanced armor was providing some protection. Its voice, when it spoke, was weak. "What have you done?" "Introduced you to true darkness," said Walker. "Not just the absence of light, but the neutralization of light itself. Your scientists never considered that darkness could be an active force, not just a passive state." The ambassador's body was beginning to crack, blue skin flaking away despite its armor's protection. "This changes nothing. The command has been sent. The platforms will complete their mission." Walker tapped his radio. "Green, what's happening with the orbital platforms?" "Something amazing," she replied, her voice awed. "They're failing, Captain. All of them, around the world. They're just shutting down." Walker understood what had happened. The darkness bomb had not just affected the base. Its energy had traveled along the connection to the orbital platforms, disrupting their systems as well. "It's over, Ambassador," said Walker. "Your light show is canceled." Bright's body was almost gone now, but its three eyes still glowed faintly. "You think you've won, but you've only delayed inevitable. Light is life, Captain. You cannot survive in darkness forever." "We don't need to," replied Walker. "Unlike you, we thrive in both." As the ambassador disintegrated completely, Walker contacted his team. "The central facility is secure. What's our status worldwide?" Reports came in quickly. Across the globe, resistance teams had successfully breached Luminari bases. The darkness, bombs deployed simultaneously, had devastated the aliens' forces. Without their light sources, the Luminari were helpless. "Their ships are retreating," reported Lieutenant Harris. "Rising into orbit. Those that still can, anyway." Walker made his way back through the now dark corridors of the base. The surviving Luminari had fled, leaving their equipment behind. Human scientists would study it for years, learning the secrets of their light-based technology. Outside, dawn was breaking. Real sunlight, not the harsh artificial glare of the Luminari ships, warmed Walker's face. He removed his damaged shadow suit and looked up at the sky. A few Luminari vessels were visible, rising toward space. "Let them go," he said when Harris suggested shooting them down. "They can take a message back to their world." "What message is that, sir?" asked Harris. Walker smiled, watching the ships disappear into the morning sky. "That humans don't fear the dark. We master it." Around the world, similar scenes played out. Humans emerged from their underground bases and night hiding places, reclaiming the surface. The war wasn't completely over. Some Luminari remained, cut off from their ships and fighting desperately. But the tide had turned decisively. That evening, Walker stood with Miller and Green on a hillside, watching the first natural sunset many had seen in months. "What do you think they'll do?" asked Green. "Will they come back with more ships, more weapons?" Walker considered the question, as darkness fell and stars appeared overhead. "I don't think so. They fundamentally misunderstood humans. They thought by taking away our light they'd break us. Instead, they taught us to weaponize the dark." Miller nodded. "They've never faced a species that could adapt so quickly. That must have been terrifying for them." As night fully arrived, lights began to appear in the distance. Not the harsh glare of Luminari technology, but the warm glow of human cities coming back to life. Power was being restored, one grid at a time. "We should be ready, though," said Walker. "Just in case. We'll need defenses in space, early warning systems." Green smiled. "And we should probably keep developing those shadow suits. They might come in handy again." Walker nodded, watching the stars. Somewhere out there was the Luminari homeworld, a planet with 3 suns and no natural darkness. A world whose people had never learned what humans had always known, that darkness was not something to fear but something to understand and, when necessary, use. "The night is ours again," he said softly. "Let's make sure it stays that way." 1 year after the Luminari invasion, Earth was healing. Cities had been rebuilt, power grids restored. In parks and town squares, memorials stood to those lost in what people now called the Light War. But alongside the grief, there was pride. Humanity had faced an enemy from the stars and prevailed. Captain James Walker, now General Walker, stood at the window of his office in the New Earth Defense Force headquarters. Below, workers were installing the final pieces of a massive detection system designed to provide early warning of any future alien threats. "The last of the orbital defense platforms are online," reported Lisa Green, now his chief of operations. "Any ship approaching Earth will be detected long before it reaches orbit." Walker nodded. "And the shadow technology?" "Dr. Miller's team has made incredible progress," said Green. "We've incorporated it into all our defense systems. If the Luminari return, they'll find us much better prepared." Walker turned away from the window. On his desk sat reports from around the world. The last pockets of Luminari resistance had been eliminated 3 months ago. The aliens who couldn't escape had fought to the end, unable to surrender to a fate. In darkness, "Any word from our deep space monitoring stations?" he asked. Green shook her head. "Nothing yet. No sign of Luminari activity near our solar system." Walker wasn't surprised. The retreating Luminari ships had been damaged, their numbers greatly reduced. It would take time for them to return to their homeworld, longer still to mount another invasion, if they ever did. His phone rang, the secure line that connected directly to the president's office. "General Walker speaking." "General, we've received a transmission," said the president. "You need to see this immediately." Walker's heart raced. "Luminari?" "Yes, but not what we expected. A ship has appeared at the edge of our solar system. Just one, and it's broadcasting on all frequencies. They're asking to speak with you specifically." Within the hour, Walker was in the White House Situation Room along with Dr. Miller, Green, and the highest-ranking government officials. On the main screen, a grainy image showed a single luminary vessel holding position near Jupiter. "The message repeats every 10 minutes, explained the communications officer. "They say they come in peace as representatives of a new luminary government." "Play it," ordered the president. The screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. Ambassador Bright. But this Bright looked different. The blue skin was paler, and the 3 eyes didn't glow as brightly as before. "People of Earth, this is Ambassador Bright of the new Luminary Consensus. I request permission to approach Earth for peaceful negotiations. I wish to speak with General James Walker regarding terms of coexistence." The message ended, repeating, after a brief pause. "It's a trap," said the Secretary of Defense immediately. "They're scouting for a second invasion." Walker studied the image carefully. "I'm not so sure. Look at Bright. Something's different." "And why send just one ship?" Miller adjusted his glasses. "Our scans show their ship is significantly less powerful than the invasion fleet. It has minimal weapons and appears to be running on reduced power." "What do you think, General?" asked the president. Walker considered for a moment. "I think we should hear what they have to say. Under strict conditions, of course." 2 days later, a small luminary shuttle descended to a remote airfield in the Nevada desert. Earth defense systems tracked every inch of its approach, weapons locked on and ready. The area had been evacuated for miles around with only military personnel remaining. Walker waited on the tarmac with a small team, all wearing the latest version of shadow suits as a precaution. The shuttle landed softly, its engines quieter than the invasion craft had been. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a door opened, and Ambassador Bright emerged alone. Walker was immediately struck by how different the alien looked. Its skin was not only paler but had patches of dark blue, almost purple. Its movements were slower, more deliberate. "General Walker," said Bright, stopping at a respectful distance. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "You said you wanted to discuss coexistence," said Walker. "I'm listening." Bright gestured to the shuttle. "May we speak inside? There are things I need to show you." After a careful security scan, Walker agreed. Inside the shuttle, the lighting was much dimmer than any Luminari craft he had seen during the war. Bright moved to a control panel and activated a screen. "After our defeat, those of us who returned to our homeworld faced chaos," explained the ambassador. "Our government collapsed. 3 factions emerged. Those who wanted to rebuild and attack Earth again, those who wished to abandon this sector of space entirely, and a third group, my group." Images appeared on the screen. The Luminari homeworld, a planet bathed in the constant light of 3 suns. "What made your group different?" asked Walker. "We learned from humans," said Bright. "For generations we believed darkness was death, that no advanced species could thrive without constant light. You proved us wrong." The screen showed Luminari, with the same darker patches as Bright. They were working in areas of reduced light, using equipment that looked partially of Earth design. "These are adapted Luminari," explained Bright. "We began experimenting with controlled darkness exposure. Painful at first, but those who survived developed the ability to endure low light conditions, a biological adaptation we never thought possible." Walker was stunned. "You deliberately exposed yourselves to darkness. Why?" "Because we saw the future," said Bright simply. "Our civilization developed in a rare star system with 3 suns. We evolved without experiencing night. This made us powerful in some ways, but vulnerable in others." More images appeared, star maps showing thousands of systems. "Most habitable worlds experience darkness," continued Bright. "If we cannot adapt to it, we are limited to a tiny fraction of possible worlds. Our society would remain forever confined, vulnerable to extinction if anything happened to our home system." Walker began to understand. "So this isn't about Earth at all. You're thinking much bigger." "Yes," admitted Bright. "Earth showed us our weakness, but it also showed us a possible solution. If some Luminari can adapt to live in both light and darkness, as humans do, our species has a future among the stars." "And the other factions?" asked Walker. "The ones who want to attack us again?" Bright's eyes dimmed slightly. "There is civil war on our world. My faction, the Adaptationists, currently hold the most territory, but the fight continues. I came to propose an alliance." Walker raised an eyebrow. "An alliance? After you invaded our planet and tried to enslave us?" "I understand your skepticism," said Bright, "but consider the advantages. We offer our light technology, far advanced beyond Earth science. In return, we ask for help developing darkness adaptation techniques and sanctuary for those Luminari who choose to adapt." "You want to live on Earth?" "Not exactly," said Bright. "We seek permission to establish a small colony on your moon. The regular cycle of 2 weeks of sunlight followed by 2 weeks of darkness would be perfect for our adaptation program. In return, we would help build lunar defenses and share all our knowledge." Walker was silent for a long moment. The proposal was unexpected but intriguing. A peaceful Luminari faction could be a powerful ally, especially if other hostile aliens existed in the galaxy. "I'll need to discuss this with our leaders," he said finally. "But first, I have a question. Why did you come to me specifically? Why not approach our government directly?" Bright's 3 eyes focused on Walker intensely. "Because you understand both sides of this conflict. You fought us in darkness, but you did not destroy us out of hatred or fear. You let our ships leave. You showed what humans call mercy. Walker remembered that moment, watching the defeated Luminari ships rising into the dawn sky. And there's one more thing, added Bright, something we discovered when analyzing the shadowsuit technology. The ambassador activated another screen, showing complex diagrams of human and Luminari cellular structures. The darkness adaptation we're undergoing. It changes our biology fundamentally. Those who successfully adapt develop cellular structures remarkably similar to human cells in certain ways. We believe there may be compatibility. What kind of compatibility? Asked Walker, suspicious. Shared environments, medical treatments, perhaps even more, said Bright. Your scientists theorize that light and darkness are not merely conditions but fundamental forces that can be harnessed. They were right, and that discovery opens possibilities neither of our species has imagined. Walker studied the alien who had once been his enemy. The changes in Bright were obvious, not just physical adaptations to darkness, but a different way of thinking. You've changed, Ambassador. As has your world, replied Bright. We both learned from the war. The question is, what will we do with that knowledge? 3 days later, in a historic broadcast watched by billions around the world, General Walker stood beside Ambassador Bright as the President announced the Luna Accord, a treaty establishing a small Luminari research colony on the far side of the moon with strict oversight and security protocols. Not everyone was happy with the decision. Protests erupted in cities across Earth. Many humans could not forgive the Luminari for the war, could not trust the aliens who had once tried to conquer them. Walker understood their feelings but supported the accord. As he explained to a skeptical Lisa Green, we need to think beyond just Earth now. The universe is bigger and stranger than we imagined. The Luminari won't be the last aliens we encounter. 6 months later, Walker visited the lunar colony. Through reinforced windows, he watched as Luminari scientists worked alongside human researchers, studying the effects of darkness adaptation. The aliens still glowed faintly, but now they moved comfortably in areas of reduced light that would have killed them a year earlier. Dr. Miller joined him at the window. Remarkable progress. Some of the second-generation adapters can now survive complete darkness for up to an hour. And the light technology transfers? Asked Walker. Revolutionary, said Miller enthusiastically. Their solar collection methods are centuries beyond ours. The new panels we've developed together are already providing clean energy to half of Earth. Walker nodded, watching a young Luminari working with a human scientist. The alien's skin showed extensive dark patches, signs of successful adaptation. They call themselves Children of the Night now, said Miller. The adapted ones. Poetic, isn't it? Walker smiled slightly. They're learning more than just how to survive darkness. As he prepared to return to Earth, Ambassador Bright approached him one last time. General Walker, before you leave, I have something to ask. Something personal. Walker waited, curious. When you first entered our base during the final battle, bringing darkness with you, did you know we would die in it? Did you intend our destruction? Walker considered the question carefully. I knew darkness was lethal to your kind, but I also hoped some would survive, would learn, would adapt. Bright's eyes dimmed in what Walker had come to recognize as a thoughtful expression. The universe is mostly darkness, you know, said the ambassador. Between stars there is only void. We Luminari feared that void, built our entire civilization around denying it existed. But you humans, you looked into the darkness and saw possibility. Walker thought about this as his shuttle returned to Earth. Below him, the night side of the planet came into view, a canvas of darkness painted with the lights of human cities. Bright's words echoed in his mind. Humans had never feared the dark, not really. They had respected it, used it when needed, illuminated it when desired. That balance, the understanding that both light and darkness had their place, had saved humanity when the Luminari attacked. And now, it might save the Luminari too. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Walker watched the Terminator line, that moving boundary between day and night that circled the planet endlessly. Light and darkness not in conflict, but in eternal dance. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest lesson to teach the stars.